But yeah, the kind of the really, really high level overview for me, it's look, people are you're gonna if you, especially if you're just getting started, like one of the first arguments you'll probably find yourself in is people deciding what programming language they should learn. So that's probably because look, end of the day, if you want to get in machine learning, you're writing either math or code. And I'm biased for the code part, so I like writing code. If you want to get deep into the research, you're going to be writing a lot of math. So you're going to have to learn to code. So this is from scratch. If you don't know anything, you're going to have to learn to code. And the first thing you're going to face is, okay, I want to learn machine learning. You go, oh, there's a whole bunch of programming languages that I should learn or could learn. And now I spent probably 2 weeks when I first started learning, like in this eternal debate, and it just ended up being a whole bunch of wasted time. I should have just gone with just tried something out before, because you're a lot smarter when you're doing things than you are thinking about things. So if you want my very biased direction, I would say learn a programming language. It's probably going to be Python. Of course, you can learn R, but this is just my take. Learn Python. Why? Because there's a lot of resources out there, especially when you get into the more advanced stuff. It's basically all Python. And then someone's going to argue, like, oh, why not Julia? It's this new language. It's like, okay, well, you can do that. Just beware that because it's newer, there's not as many resources out there. So my approach, learn Python. Very approachable programming language. I'm not going to say easy because I hate it when people say things are easy to learn. Sometimes they're hard for people. Sometimes they're easy. Anyway, it's approachable. So learn Python, and then you're probably going to, so this is, when I say each of these steps, don't think of it as like something you can do like just over a weekend. Like this is like a 3-month per step. So learn Python, and then you're probably going to learn how to work with data. And so if you're using Python, it's probably going to be the main 3 libraries you're going to work with, Pandas, NumPy, and Matplotlib. So Pandas is to represent structured data, the things that you see in an Excel spreadsheet, which is probably the vast majority, despite what you see in terms of what deep learning can do with unstructured data, which is images, video, audio, that sort of thing. The vast majority of data you're probably likely to work with is structured data. And even if you want to go into deep learning and things like image recognition, video analysis, etc., it's still very, very important to be able to just manipulate data. So this is where Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib come in. Those 3, you could spend 3 months total on those. And now, again, I've been learning this for almost 3 years, and I'm still learning all of these things. So this is just what I'm like giving like let's say a year-long sort of headfirst dive into machine learning, Python. And at the same time as you're doing all this, you want some concepts. So here we've got 4 things. We've got Python, just the programming language itself. We want machine learning concepts on the side. So you just get a broad overview of like the general concepts of machine learning, like what the different types of learning are, what machine learning actually is. Then we want to be able to manipulate data with Pandas, Matplotlib, and NumPy. NumPy is numerical Python. So it's very similar to Python, but a lot faster than Python at working with numbers, which is basically what data is just patterns and numbers. And then we want to work with possibly the most robust machine learning library that's out there at the moment is Scikit-Learn. So that is like how do you say? You're probably going to use that if you're working on machine learning problems, because here's a good thing. A lot of the deep learning libraries are actually based off like Scikit-Learn structure. So we got 5 things now: Python, concepts, Pandas, Matplotlib, NumPy, Scikit-Learn. And if you're brand new, me saying all of these things is probably going to sound like gibberish to you, but trust me, they'll become part of your workflow. Then after that, the natural progression to that is probably getting into some sort of deep learning. And for that, you're going to find another debate. You're going to go, oh, should I learn TensorFlow or should I learn PyTorch? Which is, again, a waste of time debating that, because you'll probably end up going to using both. And these days, they're much of the muchness. They do very similar things. It's just different syntax. And so while you're learning these things, you're probably going to be like, Daniel, where should I learn them? And you can do your research. You're smart enough. There is basically an unlimited amount of research that's out there. Of resources that are out there to learn all of these things. All of them are basically the same thing, just explained differently. So find something that resonates with you. And what's really helped me is working in small little sprints of like learning things. So it's like, say this month, I want to, like 2 months ago, I read this book end to end.
I'll link it below. I love that book.
Yeah. So if you're a complete beginner, I probably wouldn't recommend jumping straight into this. Like this is like you've never programmed before. If you have some Python experience, well, then you could probably start reading this. But if you've never like written any code before, which I mean, if you're watching this video, it's probably unlikely. You're probably already into data science and whatever. So if you are watching this video, get this book if you can. If you can't get this book, don't worry. All the code is on GitHub. You just have to go through it yourself, which is, see, this is where I like what you're often paying for in paid resources for learning is someone has done the curation for you and put it into like a structured manner. Because as I said, if you wanted to learn Python, you could just read the Python docs. But there we have like the foundational tool belt that you're going to be using. Now, to put your knowledge really into practice, and this comes back to sharing your work, is you want to at least every 1 to 3 months, depending on what you're working on, is work on at least some small scale project. And whatever timeline you dedicate to that is up to you. But I would usually recommend something that's at least like a month long of, if you're working, maybe it's a month long of weekends. So it's like 4 weeks of like just going, hey, I'm working on this one thing and the first week I'm going to do data collection. The second week I'm going to do data modeling. The third week I'm going to try and improve my model. The fourth week I'm going to wrap it all up and share what I found. Now, again, timeline is arbitrary. How long you spend on each step is arbitrary. But the most important thing is courses, books, etc., lay the foundational knowledge. You can't really start working on a project if you don't have any idea of anything. So you do need the foundational knowledge, but where the specific knowledge happens is when you start to work on your own things. And Ken and I talked about this before. Projects, something that might not work, something that interests you, something that makes you feel smart, happy, and useful. And the fifth one there can be share it. Share your work.